this is Tony.
This is Paul coming at you from the Friends for Life podcast.
And we're go.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Friends for Life podcast. Thanks for tuning back in here on YouTube. If you can, go down below and hit that subscribe button. Tonight we are joined by Jimmy Finley. He's the CEO of THS Remote Support Services. And Tony and I talked to him in detail about the awesome stuff that he offers. The remote support services is really cool. They're able to basically assist people without actually having to be there in person. It's very cool, it's very time effective, it's very cost effective, and it's just a great thing that I didn't even know existed. So let's talk to Jimmy and see what this is all about. Jimmy, Mr. Finley, welcome to the Friends for Life podcast. We're happy that you're taking time to join us. Before we get too heavy with things here today, why don't you let us know a little bit about THS Remote Support Services and kind of what you guys offer, and then we'll kind of dive into some more wide topics.
Sure. Perfect. First, thanks for having me. It's great to be on here and chat with everybody.
Oh, man, thank you.
THS Remote Supports, in general, what we offer is supporting people from afar. So we try and identify different pieces of technology that will help us do that, depending on what that person might need. And it's totally different for every single person. So our whole goal is to help them without being in their way or being in their space, giving them some little bit of freedom and independence that makes them, feel like they're not crowded by somebody all the time.
Well, and right now, you're an Ohio-based company, correct?
We are based out of Ohio. Yeah, we predominantly do 99% of all of our work in Ohio, but we have expanded to Minnesota, we are starting in Wisconsin, and we are certified now in Indiana. We have some clients interested there, and
Nice.
we had some meetings with some potential clients in Kentucky. So
Yeah.
even though we have been Ohio since our inception, it seems the end of this year, people were interested in from other states. So we started talking with them and seeing how we might be able to help.
Well, Jimmy, break it down for us. What's your background in? I mean, did you start off as, a DSP or anything, or you have more technological background?
Well, I've always liked technology, but I started off in the residential side in the in-home supports. So 13 years ago, THS, our residential division, is where I was working. And the THS Remote Supports division didn't start up until about 5 years ago.
Gotcha.
So those first 8 years were all residential services. Working my way up, program management, then office management, and then switching over to the technology division.
There you go. So how many years combined?
It's been 13 years now.
There you go. Nice. What was your best experience?
Oh, geez. I had a young lady who I helped through middle school and high school. Her sister passed away. It was a very sad time for her. Her mother lost guardianship, and that was hard on her. But she moved out into an apartment, honestly, by herself, even though she was underage, and she got a court-appointed guardian, and she received 24-hour supports, and that's why the courts agreed to it. But to see her graduate high school was probably one of the most rewarding times that I've had here.
That's got to touch deep. I mean, I really think, especially when we build those connections and there's trauma involved, to see somebody fight through it who has more challenges than not just you or I, but a lot of other people throughout the world.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely a good one. But give me one of your worst ones. Like, what was as a direct care worker? What was you walked out and said, "Man, is this what I still want to do?"
I'm gonna say it's with the same girl. There was a day, one really bad day, and it was one of those days where I'd said just that, like, "What am I doing?" But she was having a rough day. She was overstimulated. She was anxious. she threw a can of green beans at me that stuck in the drywall next to my head.
Wow.
She ran out the door. I was trying to follow behind her, and she was like a gazelle, just running so fast. And uh, she ran down this hill, and I was following her, and I rolled my ankle, and I fell, and
Oh
it was
man.
probably a mile and a half we ran. And she lived in a big apartment complex, a giant one. And
Mhm.
I lost sight of her. I didn't know where she was, and
Oh man.
finally I went to like the main leasing office, which was the direction we were running, up like near the pool and things, and she was in
Mhm.
there. But that experience was like, this please, I need this day to be over kind of a day,
Right.
for sure.
Oh man, I like hearing those stories. It takes me back to I mean, because there were so many moments. I swear, in the moment, you think like, man, I'm about to lose my job. This individual is about to lose their life. Like everything is just going bad. And then some time go by, and you think like, oh, it was a horrible situation, but we worked ourselves through it. We pushed
We
ourselves
got
through
through it. Yep.
it. So tell me, what made you guys really go the direction that you're going at THS, and when it comes to remote supports?
Well, we were always a company, even when we were just only doing residential services, that tried to use technology.
Mhm.
We tried to use service and skill documentation electronically early on. Now, it's outcome, driven type,
Yeah.
person centered things. And so the terminology's changed, but we tried to use that early on and get rid of paper and do electronic timesheets and electronic mileage submission that would allow us to pay next day mileage payments to staff's direct deposit,
That's it. That's
so they
very
didn't have to
important.
wait for that money a week. And we never had those the pushback of, well, I don't have gas money to take them to the doctor type of situation. So we tried to
Right.
think outside the box that way.
Mhm.
And when overtime started becoming an issue, when there was less and less staff,
Mhm.
when on top of that the health insurance costs um, increased, and all those sorts of things, we said we can't survive as a company financially if we keep going this way. So let's find a
Right.
way to make it better. And it happened to be that what we do now kills two birds with one stone.
Mhm.
It helps financially to the provider, but it gives independence to the person too.
Yeah.
So when we realized that this service had been written into law and this was something that was being talked about as something new, we said, we're going to jump on this, see what we can come up with. Um, and at first, we only started with those people that we served residentially,
Yeah.
since it was new to us. And we got our feet wet, and then we expanded.
Smart move. You always got to play around in your own backyard before you start jumping the
Hmm.
fence.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Mm.
I was looking up on your website and it was kind of interesting because obviously being the guy who runs the podcast here, I'm enthralled with technology all the time.
Yeah,
So
he's really obsessed. Yeah.
the uh the way that it sounds on your website is pretty cool with like kind of how there's monitoring and there's all these like indicators where someone can be there. Is it kind of like this on-call system where somebody can reach out and say, "Hey, I need something," or how does that process work? Because I don't know much
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah, it's very much like a call center. So we have staff that worked direct care in the field, and we said, hey, we're doing this new type of service. You've really proven yourself to us. We want this to be a rewarding job. We want this to be a lucrative job. So we're able to pay a higher rate in this position. It helps with turnover.
Yeah.
And they now do that caregiving over computers. So they sit there and they wait for some type of alert or a call request, and they talk to the person or they review some data, they review some sensors, and it guides them on how to react based on what is coming in.
Hmm.
So for us, that was a huge piece of it. When we started with our own people, we use softwares that already existed, and we went through lots of them. And we didn't like something about software A, and then software B fixed that problem but had a whole different problem. And we just kept going through it until we said, hey, this isn't going to work. Hired our own developers, and we were worried about it because it is not cheap.
Yeah.
And it was worth it though. And now we have our own software. It's proprietary. And the big key piece in that is what we call protocols. So if I learn something about you, Paul, and you're interested, I set it up exactly how you want us to respond. And that could look like, hey, the front door opens, it gets assigned to one of our staff on their computer screen. Then it tells them a statement of what to do. So, hey, look at Paul's front patio. And then it asks them a question. So, did Paul leave? Is that question? Yes or no? Yes. Then it gives them another statement. Okay, well, Paul's safe out in the community for up to 2 hours. Or Paul's not safe in the community. Try and call his cell phone, see if he'll come back. Those type of things. So whatever responses you want is what we will customize there and program. And it just keeps going down all these different paths. So instead of Paul left yes, if we said no, well, then the question's totally different. It's, well, did somebody come in to the house? Yes. Okay, call in on a two-way talk tablet, a video chat. Hey, how you doing, Paul? I see you got a friend that came in. Do you know them? Do you feel safe? Whatever types of questions you want there, it's just fully customizable. And some people don't even need that. It just like a visual look in, pop in. Hey, does everything look okay? Or they seem to be in distress?
Right.
And that could be a way of not calling in and bothering them, so they don't feel like somebody's annoying them. Leave me alone. I just have my friends coming over. So it just depends on what they want, what they need. And that's the great thing is they can get the safety net of supports without really feeling like somebody's looking over their shoulder.
Yes. And I think that's one of the biggest things that our field of work has almost forgotten sometimes, that we are intruders in a way into someone else's home. Although we are there for the right reasons to provide the services, but sometimes that body presence, you can get irritable with that. And if you only have a very minimal plan, or you have shown, like you said, the safety skills that you can be by yourself with superficial monitoring, that should be awesome. So I really think that it helps give that privacy. Although yes, you have somebody monitoring, again, it all depends on how the plan is written and how the team wants it really to go. It might not be anyone just staring at a camera all day, but just like you said, maybe door alerts or window alerts, things to that nature. And the camera only would be turned on in an emergency situation.
Exactly. And our staff can't even just look into a camera without an alert. So if Paul has our services, our regular staff at these computer stations can't just pull up Paul's camera whenever they want. They have to have an alert that's assigned. So it's just another layer of privacy.
Yes.
We want everybody to feel comfortable. If we're not scheduled and we don't get an alert, there's no way for them to look in. Now, there are some of our upper management technicians and things like that can log in to troubleshoot when there's not an alert. Let's say somebody tells us like, hey, I unplugged the camera, I plugged it back in, I hit it with a vacuum or whatever it might be. I just want to make sure it's working, and we can log in and make sure it's working. Those type of things. So it just depends on their setup. Some people don't even have cameras at all, and it's just sensors. So it's just totally what they're comfortable with. Some people have a video chat tablet in their bedroom, but there's a little slidable lens over the camera.
Yeah.
So we can't see them, but they can see us.
Echoes. I have those for my
Yeah, they're
echoes.
nice.
I'm nervous of a big brother at times.
So that's a neat part of it too, is it's not a big brother situation where they're just being watched all the time.
Yes. And I think that's definitely the misconception, or at least how it used to be in the past, where I give you guys a lot of props for innovating.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, what was your kind of history? I know you said you've been in the field for a while, but what drew you to the field in the first place? Because, like, for someone like me, I never worked with disabilities until I started working with Tony, doing his media stuff. So, how did you get drawn in, and what kept you here this whole time?
Well, it was kind of an odd thing. I had a friend whose brother started a company, and it was a new company, and I was looking to change and get something else going on, and they needed some help. So I said, "Hey, I'll give it a shot." I kind of like you. Before that, wasn't involved with helping anybody or any kind of services with disabilities. Um, so when I started, it was all brand new, all
Yeah.
learning, from the ground up.
Nice. So yeah, I mean, I have a lot to navigate as well. Like, there's a lot of terminology. There's a lot of stuff that I don't know. But yeah, I mean, coming, it's cool to kind of, with you especially, connecting the disability world and the technology world, because that's where I live. Like, I'm the camera guy and the audio guy and the photography guy, so that's kind of where I my interest comes in. So as far as these sensors go, what can they pick? I mean, are they just tracking like simple movement, or are they tracking like you said, doors maybe? What's the whole I mean, I know you said it's all customized to each individual person, but is it kind of just looking for specific things that might make you kind of be like, hey, something's not right here? Is that the whole setup, or is it just to?
Exactly. We're trying to be able to identify a time when someone might need help, but
Mm.
not during the other times where everything's just normal and they're watching TV,
Just
as an example. So, what is a team worried about? Is a team worried about someone leaving or someone coming in? Is a team worried about somebody falling or going into the bathroom and not coming out because they're sick? Is a
yeah.
team worried about somebody overeating, um, cooking incorrectly, or catching something on fire? There's lots of different things, seizures. Um, there's time frames as well when it comes to like reminders. So in the morning time frames, we've got a lot of, hey, call in. Do you have your keys? Do you have your money for lunch? Or did you pack your lunch? Those
Oh
sorts of
wow, you
things.
guys go that deep with it.
Yeah. So anything that a staff would do there in the morning to make sure somebody was ready before they leave, we can try and mimic that as long as it doesn't require a physical person.
Person.
So if
Gotcha.
a staffer would say, go down a checklist, have you taken your meds? Do you have your key, et cetera, et cetera. We can do all those sorts of things too. And we do wake up calls, make sure someone's up so they got enough time to get ready. Hey, don't forget, you know, um, take a shower, brush your teeth, and we could stop it there. And then in 30 minutes later, do the next set of steps,
Mm-hmm.
um, sort of thing. So same thing at night. We do have a lot of, hey, have you locked your doors? Is your phone charging? Those sorts of things.
That's very
That just
good.
might small little stuff that helps people stay on track. So the next day when they leave, their phone's not dead or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Yeah.
like I need that for myself sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist in my life.
It's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's life is busy.
So do you think with, I mean, technology is arguably made everyone's life like significantly better over the last, I don't know, few hundred years, I would
And
say.
or worse.
Well, yeah. Do you think that this is going to be something that's going to be potentially in the future is going to be more common? Because before we started talking with you, this is the first I've heard of something like this. So do you kind of see a projection of this being bigger in the future, or uh, maybe not? I'm not sure.
I definitely do. I think people from these other states reaching out have really shown that they're trying to start something and get these services and programs running across the nation. Ohio was one of the first states in all of the U.S. to do something like this, and Governor Kasich at the time, years ago, put in an executive order for a technology first initiative.
I do
Let's look at
remember that.
how we can use technology before we use in-person supports. If it can be used, we really should use it. It increases
Mhm.
independence. Um, it's fiscally responsible with tax dollars too. It's because it's cheaper. um, and there's just not enough staff anymore. So that's a reason why
That's
it's
the
going to
biggest.
be more and more of a need is um, the staff that people with disabilities or the aging population need is going to dwindle, and that the needs for the services, there's going to be more
Hmm.
people in that age group who needs that type of service, is so that needs going to increase while the resource of staff decreases.
And I'll add on
So
to that even
it's going to
more.
make it worse.
Even when you think about COVID, right now, it's really opened up the doors that a lot of the county boards, especially I know in Ohio, are doing it. Are looking to cut back as many physical sources as possible and try to make things more virtual and more separated, not separated, but physically distant instead of all of that up close in your face at this moment.
Hmm.
Until COVID really gets, I guess, eradicated or we get better at treating it. I don't know. We're not going to talk about the vaccine though. We're going to stay clear off that subject right now. I don't need any hate mail.
But you're right. We saw, April, we saw an uptick in people wanting very fast turnaround times because of
Mhm.
COVID. A staff tested positive, so they couldn't come in anymore, or a person that was receiving services tested positive, so the staff who were at risk due to their compromised immune system couldn't
Yeah.
go in anymore that way.
Hmm.
So we've had, I don't know, this is a guess, 30 people, get same day or next day installation because of they tested positive or their staff tested positive. Um, and every year we've had more and more intakes as we go, and we're not really doing much marketing. We will send some emails every now and then that's just, hey, in case you didn't know about us, you know, check out our website maybe. But, we don't have any like commercials or
Or
advertise,
anything.
nothing like
Yeah.
that. It's just kind of like a word of mouth mostly.
Hmm.
Um, Last year we brought on 109 new individuals. This year, looking through the rest of this month, it looks like we're going to bring on around 150.
That's
Um,
good.
so it it's a big need, and we know these other
Hmm.
states are expanding it. So
Yeah.
it's probably just going to ramp up even more.
And even from the business end, because when you and I first met and we discussed the thing, I was very intrigued as a provider the route that I can go, because it's I mean, we'll call a spade a spade. You are providing a service that providers actually, if there's no issues, get money and can sleep freely.
Yeah, you would get paid for doing nothing.
Yeah, so aside from
You're
having,
welcome.
yeah, like thank you, thank you.
Hey, how do I'm gonna go work for him.
No, and of course, there's policies and procedures where there's on-call staff and all that, just in the event of something happening. But if I'm not mistaken, you guys have a pretty well track record because of a lot of the things that you've put in place that you don't have that too often.
Yeah, the goal is to limit when we need to reach out to you for an in-person assistance, and we're we're serving over 350 people, and we haven't done the math recently, but last time we checked, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, our average was just over 2 times per year per person that we
Wow.
would reach out. So 365 days a year, 2 maybe 3 days you're being contacted.
Like
So you're being paid almost the entire year and not having to
to
do much of
to
anything.
physically get out.
Yep.
And I think not only does that help with staffing, it helps with the company itself because now instead of having that staff person who gets OSAC or on site on call, and you have to pay at least the minimum wage. And honestly, after you think about workman's comp and your liability insurances and stuff as a provider, it's almost at a wash. And you have still all these liabilities with that staff person being there. When a person or an individual may have been able to be by themselves with a simple checkup using your system.
Hmm.
So I take my hat off to you for that. It's
Yeah,
a big help.
and now someone else where you struggled to staff that really does need the staff can use the person who was at
Hmm.
home B who doesn't really need it.
Correct.
So it not only helps the person that's receiving remote supports, it helps the people who aren't receiving it.
Hmm.
So do you find that you can staff less people but kind of keep an eye on more? Like what's kind of like the ratio to like people you have monitoring versus, obviously if you have staff, they have to be each person in each house. So are you having a lot more like a lot less people monitoring like a handful of individuals, or is it 1-to-1 still?
Oh, the ratio is definitely much higher. We're providing over 18,000 hours of remote supports every week right now.
Ooh.
Wow.
So divide that by 40, and
40.
that's how many full-time jobs it would take to serve those people in their homes. Um, we look at our software, and our software tells us how many alerts we got from the midnight hour to the 1 a.m. hour, from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then it does it by Sunday, by Monday, by Tuesday, etc. So we know where our highest influx of alerts are based on who's scheduled.
There you
Most of
go.
our people do get services overnight, so most of our alerts are overnight. And we take our staff and we want to schedule them to where they handle 6 alerts an hour. So they have 10 minutes per alert is our average.
Okay.
Then we schedule another staff on top of that. And then we have our shift supervisor on top of that. So in case there are spikes that are a little bit above the normal, we have that wiggle room to cover everything and still do it quickly. Um, but those ratios can fluctuate. It could be, um, you know, 1 on 6 individuals that we're helping, or it could be 1 on 25. It just depends on because Paul might have an average of 2 alerts a day, but
Gotcha.
Tony, you might have an average of 2 alerts a month.
Because I'm
So
good.
we
I mean,
don't do it by people; we do it by alerts.
Hmm.
there you
So
go.
it's we learned that as one of our first things we, as a, getting our feet in the water. Of
Hmm.
we tried to do a ratio of staff to individuals we were serving, and we realized really didn't make sense because it was so hard to judge the what the average person would get. We
Yeah,
needed the data of how many alerts that was.
makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's one of the coolest things with data nowadays is, I mean, you can crunch some numbers and get
Hmm.
some insane amount of info to like just maximize everything that you do. And it's so cool. I mean, we do that with the podcast numbers, we do that with,
Yeah.
advertising. Whatever you're doing, you can kind of like narrow it down, and you can kind of like work out a way to like get the most efficiency out of something rather than just sitting there guessing and hoping everything's going all right. So like yeah, that's definitely a genius idea. What kind of disabilities are you guys serving? I mean, I know that's a huge broad range of people, so what's kind of like the range of people that you're dealing with?
Oh, geez, it is very broad. Um, I don't even know how to start. We've got
Yeah.
individuals who have autism, who have Down syndrome. Those are the disabilities that most people in the public are aware of.
Wherever you are.
Um, but there's way more than that. There's Prader-Willis where you have
Hmm.
caloric intake issues and you want to eat anything, even rotten food
Yeah.
type of situations. You have intermittent explosive disorder, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, which is a mixture of schizophrenia and a bipolar diagnosis at the same time. So there's lots of stuff out there, chromosomal issues. It runs the gamut. As long as we say, hey, here's how we can support your concern, and the team decides, well, yeah, that works,
There you
then
go.
we'll serve them. There have been a couple situations where we've done meetings and the team wanted to use remote supports, but we said no just because we felt like the chance of it being successful just wasn't there. We didn't want somebody to get hurt.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Someone who was on suicide watch type of
Mm.
situation, and we're like, hey, you know, we'd rather not take the risk because if there's some type of slip up there, then somebody might die, type of a situation. So it's been pretty rare that we've said no, and we're honest about it. Um, and surprisingly, most of the time, it's somebody saying, "Yeah, we'll do it, but I'm gonna bet they're not gonna like it." And
Yeah.
then a month later, like, I can't believe how happy they are.
Yeah.
They're a totally different person. Um, for example, we had one lady who she went through 98 staff in 18 months
Wow.
and
That's
didn't have any more staff.
I
Tried
take
to
my hat
implement
off
remote
to
supports.
her.
County said, no, we're not going to authorize remote supports because she was in a wheelchair and they were worried about what if she fell out of her chair
Fell
and
out
there's
of
not a person there, which is a valid concern. And we tried to brainstorm and say, okay, well, what happens when she does slide out of her chair? Has she gotten hurt? Has she broken any bones? Sort of things. And the county just didn't feel comfortable with it. Well, a year later, they came back to us, 4 staffing companies later, and said,
Wow.
hey, we're going to try this because there's no staff that can go out anyways. And it's complete night and day. Now she's had the same 4 staff for going almost 3 years now. So she was one of those first people we talked to the county
Wow.
board about. And
That is an awesome
she
story.
really only gets like 5 hours a day of services of staffing. The rest is remote supports. And before it was 24 hours a day of people. But it's all about those alerts you talked about, Paul. How do we know when she might need help? And for her, she has little help buttons on the baseboards in every single room, 2 of them actually, so that depending on what side of the room she's on, she could crawl or roll over to it, push that button. She has a pendant, but she admittedly she admits she doesn't wear it very often. So she could push that button, and we even have some voice activated devices in there where she can
Oh
say,
man, cool.
something like, Alexa, call THS, and it can call us with her voice. So in 3 years now, we might have sent an ambulance like 4 times to help her from the ground back into her wheelchair, but she never was actually hurt. She just was kind of, laying on the ground.
Yes.
Which is way better than having no supports and always kicking the staff out. She would run her electric wheelchair into staff. She would pour water on them
Wow.
if they were sleeping on the couch at night during an overnight shift. Trick, hey, let's go to the grocery store. And as soon as staff walked out, she'd close the door and lock it. So she definitely ran lots and lots of staff off because she was just screaming, I don't want someone in my home, basically.
Yeah.
And now she doesn't have them except for the time she really needs them. And she's just a much happier person.
Well, it sounds like you guys have a ton of like equipment. Like, where does the cost come from? I mean, who pays for all of this? Do you guys purchase, or does the individual have to purchase the provider?
So we have a warehouse of equipment, and we usually purchase, $100,000 of equipment at a time just to have an inventory.
Okay.
And when people start using the services, we create a quote of the items they've chosen. We say, okay, you've chose 2 door sensors, a seizure sensor, a bed sensor. So all of that is X amount of dollars. We take that and we divide that by 24 months because that's what Ohio says technology should last on average is 2 years. So we charge a lease cost, divide that out monthly. And if someone wants to add a piece of equipment or remove a piece of equipment as we go, we just adjust that lease cost. Or we've had people that have moved and they only use the services for 9 months. They're not stuck, paying the rest of that equipment off. The waiver stops paying for it. But all that money is paid for through the waivers.
The waivers. That's good.
Level
So
1 self waiver, IO waiver will cover all the equipment. There's different budgets, but for the equipment, since the way we do it and dividing it out, it almost never goes over any of the waiver budgets for equipment.
that's good.
Even the lower waivers, the level 1 waivers, still cover a good amount of equipment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is.
So one thing that we kind of like to talk about too on our podcast, just not only disabilities, but how did you get on the path to become the CEO at THS currently where you're at? How did that grow for you? Because I know there's a lot of people out there who aspire to, kind of reach that level someday in their professional careers. So what did that look like for you?
Lots of hours of work.
Can you please repeat it, my brother?
Lots of it. So, I mean, yeah, once you're in the office, you're doing work, you're on the phone, you're smiling and dialing, you're sending emails, you're trying to recruit staff, you're training staff, you're doing all that during normal hours, right? It doesn't end there. There's on call afterwards because we service people 24 hours a day. So if someone's scheduled an 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift and they call off sick at 10 o'clock, you know, you're working on getting someone to come in within that hour. And if they're not coming in, you might be headed out because someone's got to be there.
Someone has to be there. Yes.
So it's a lot of that, but going out to visit people in their homes during the day too means you might be doing some emails at night. You might be catching up on other things at night. So it's a lot of a time, but you really do have to be a people person. You have to be able to, because you work with employees, you work with colleagues, you work with these teams of multiple disciplines, various physicians, social work type field employees, family members, guardians. So it's a very complex interdisciplinary team sometimes, and it's all about customer service at the same time. So no one agency has 100% of just perfect great staff. Staff are people. People make mistakes. They need retrained, those sorts of things. So when those things happen, it's about reacting quickly, acknowledging it and saying, hey, how can we get better? How can we improve this policy maybe? Or, oh yeah, you're right. We didn't go over that in training. Let's add it to the next training, sort of thing. So it's just being willing and determined to go at something hard when it's never ending.
And that is a very good way to put it because it never ends. Our jobs are never done, and even when you think it's like I've stopped like thinking that it was over. Like I used to come to these imaginary places in my head that I would be like, you know what? Oh man, we haven't had an MUI in 3 months. No real staffing issues. We've been stable. Oh man, we're good. And then as soon as I even think it, bam, 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 and it floods you. And if you're superstitious, you're thinking like, I should just been happy enough with happy. But I love the fact that it's an endless battle because it actually keeps me waking up to something. And I think, and this is different strokes for different folks. If you don't know, if this isn't you, it's okay. I'm not downing you or anything like that. But for myself, I need something to look forward to. The idea of retirement, cool, it scares me. I don't see myself ever on an official retirement thing. I might go on holiday, take a vacation or something for a month and a half. I can see myself doing that, but just to not work again, no. So,
and here's so in my previous jobs, you might do the one thing and you get tired of something, but in this field, every day is really different.
Yeah,
you've got so many people you interact with, and you've got new individuals that you're starting to help as time goes on. So you get to meet new people, learn new situations. And like I mentioned earlier, we're expanding to different states. So there's new areas. There's me talking to new people and traveling and learning other state laws now. So
there you go.
there's never like this, hey, I've done the same thing too much, I'm bored, it's monotonous. You're in the same field, but every day really is different.
Truly.
So do you have any kind of I know Tony and I are big book nerds. Do you have any recommendations on book, or are you not a big reader?
I'm a huge Ender fan.
Okay.
The Ender series. If you ever watched the movie, Ender's Game,
Yes.
um, the movie was not good. Most people say that, right? The books are always better than the movie, but
Always.
um, yeah, there might be, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I don't know, 12 or 15 books in that whole series, and
Wow, really?
I've gone through
Content
them all.
forever.
But those are the books I love. It's, if you haven't seen it, it's about a kid, 6 years old, who gets identified as, this potential um, admiral, to run the Star Fleet, basically, because they've been attacked by aliens before.
Hmm.
And the training that kid goes through from 6 years old on until he's, you know, able to lead the whole fleet of people as an admiral, and it you get to see different perspectives in some of the books. So some of the books are from Ender's perspective himself as a child as he grows,
Okay.
and then other ones are from the people around him. So you get to see a different person's point of view of it, and through the narrator saying
Now,
what's going on in their head. And,
how far into the film is it like in equity to the
um,
books?
it's just the first book.
Oh, that whole it was just the first. Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it left you at a cliffhanger, kind of like you like 'cause I'm a nerd. I'm a big Marvel nerd. So like I'm always on seeing what's going on for the next installment of the MCU. So it's like I'm always looking and checking. Have you done that with that? Is there going to be a sequel? Are they because now that
Well,
kid has to have grown and
really,
like
there better be, or I'll be disappointed. But there's just so much more in the books that they obviously could go over with the
Mhm.
movies. And even in the book, the last book is still at a cliffhanger, so
Wow.
you're waiting for the next book. Um, when Ender's old and
Yeah.
it's turning over to maybe who that next generation of person might be, type of a situation, but you're on a cliffhanger. Hey, did we find a different alien race now? Type of a thing. And, of course, not me and my sci-fi nerdiness, but um, yeah, it's cool, but there better be some more movies.
I hear that.
Do you, so I know Tony's more of a nonfiction guy.
Yes.
So do you find that helps you be more creative or think a little outside the box, reading kind of more of the fiction stuff, or not really? Because I mean, Tony and I'm a huge Lord of the Rings nerd, and he's like, "What the heck,
You can
man?"
talk to my
So,
little brother about it.
I love it, but I used to be that way. I used to read a ton of the nonfiction stuff and try and get all book smart, and then I was like, I just really like this nerdy stuff because it's like it takes me out of that head zone of like working all the time and being like, okay, I really like this
I
fantasy stuff.
like it. So when I got out of high school, I started college, and I started my courses to become a history teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's very nonfiction
Hmm.
type of situation. It's history. Um, but I, changed my studies and the business stuff. But it was funny how my interests have shifted too into fiction and other things. And I'm into, I don't know if you guys ever watched the show Stargate. Like that really
Oh,
intrigued
I
me when it got
love Stargate.
into, like Thor and
Hmm.
the Viking mythology, or the Egyptian mythology, that somehow it intertwined into, it was part of history,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it
Awesome.
was used as a way to be in a sci-fi show, even though it was a
Hmm.
part of Earth's history. So I really like that show a lot. It was neat.
You know what? And I just thought about it. I did read a fiction book. I remember I was about 15, 16 years old.
Just
And
one.
yeah. Other than that, like Charlotte's Web or something. But because I think that is definitely fiction. I think that is a true story. Charlotte's Web is so heart wrenching, but I digress. I read it was like Dreamcatcher, and when the movie came out, because I had joined this book club. And don't ask me why. And I knew it was a whole bunch of girls, so I decided to do it. And Dreamcatcher was the book, and I mean, I read it from front to back, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very good story. It satisfied my sci-fi needs and all of that. Then the movie came out, and I understood exactly what people meant in that phrase. The book was better than the movie, because my imagination from those words helped spark something that only happened to me prior, maybe in school when I was daydreaming. So I did like it, but it was just I never found it intriguing enough to go back to it. I just started wanting to read people's lives after that. I like some biographies.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. So I guess we got about 10 minutes left or so. Do you have any kind of ideas on how? I mean, it sounds like you're growing exponentially right now. Is that kind of stressful, or are you? I mean, you're probably obviously excited about that, but what's that growing process like right now? Because it sounds like you're going from 0 to 100 pretty quickly.
Well, it's very stressful. It's looking at procedures and saying, hey, this is how we've done it, but is that really scalable? Is that how it should be done once we get to 500 people we're helping, or 1,000 people? So we have the space, our office space. We could have enough remote support specialists to take care of a couple of thousand individuals. So that's all taken care of. But when it comes to, okay, who manages the billing, who manages the services, who oversees which groups of staff, do we do caseloads, how do we change how the system assigns alerts to caseloads so that they are more familiar with a smaller group of people, and we still do what we do now is called, we just assign through round robin, but we have certain skills that the software allows us to assign. So if I have a skill for sign language and someone needs that, it's going to use that to assign it to me. Or if I have an individual who prefers a female responder, then it would go to one of our female staff. Those sorts of things. But instead of just opening that up to the entire group of all of the staff, do we segment them to be smaller and say, hey, this group of staff supports these 100 people. This next group of staff is their own entity, almost their own little mini business. And who's the manager of that? And they help these next 100 people, et cetera, et cetera. Because when we first started off, we didn't have to worry about that. But now we do have to start thinking about how we're scaling. And who's how do we do revisions and redeterminations for their service plans? And we help agencies that we partner with make sure they get the right billing, because if they don't bill and get paid, then we don't get paid. So, we're that helpful resource. So this year we actually came out with a community portal, and it allows those providers we partner with to log into our system and see those people we mutually serve together, but nothing else. And you can actually see the data, and you can see Paul's door alert opened at 7 and 7:05, and our staff's documentation on what we did to make sure that Paul's safe. And it's neat that way, so you can run reports. You can look at schedules of hours and services had been done. You could submit a message and contact me. We're adding things to it. We want to be able to add clips of those alerts. If there was an alert to that door, how can I add a clip so that Tony would be able to view that clip as someone supervising the services as well? So we're always looking, and it's our software, so it's, hey, what do we do with our software next? within budget because,
Yeah.
geez,
Is it-
we were averaging like $12,000 a month in software development
wow.
this year alone. So we said, hey, let's slow it down. We have too many ideas.
Like that's all those 30, 40-minute meetings. Let's cut them down to 15 and keep it moving.
Yeah. So it's all about the scalability. And then now that these new states are in play, we're like, hey, well, the rules are different in these other states a little bit. They're mostly the same, but some things are slightly different. So do I have a separate set of staff who only serves Minnesota and a separate set of staff who only serves Kentucky? So there's never any human error on what the rule is in which state. Lots of stuff to brainstorm and plan out logistically. So it is scary that so many people want help.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's good because I've been out there and I've seen some of the other options, and I can see why we're getting lots of calls because we're getting those individuals who might have tried remote supports a different way, and they're great companies that they worked with, but we just happened to go through our learning pains. And we learned from it, and we're just a little bit ahead, I think. So we started with our own people, and we hammered out those learning pains, and we've got a system that has redundancies. What if a person's power goes out? What if a person's internet goes out? At our building, we have 3 lines of internet, 2 underground, 1 from northbound, 1 from southbound, 1 on a pole.
Wow.
Okay, someone hits the pole, I still got the ones underground. Someone cuts that line over there, I still got this line. A backup generator for the whole building, so we're up and running. We're not going to go down. Different things like that we've planned ahead for, and it makes everything really reliable.
Yeah, what's funny is you're in remote supports, and I was going to ask, are any of your staff working remotely? Or do you still have everyone coming into your offices?
We do have some, let's say Paul calls off and Tony calls off. We don't want to be low on staff. So when someone's filling a shift, they might work that shift remotely, type of a thing. Right now, our stations are separated. Every other station's empty because we want to be distanced. And they've got these wall dividers up and everything. So it keeps them away from each other and safe. But we do have some people who they've got their battery backup system at home, and they've got a hotspot at home. They use their local internet, but if their internet goes out, it kicks over to that hotspot right away.
Nice.
And they've got a redundancy. So we want everything to work smoothly, flawlessly. And let's say their internet fails and their hotspot fails, and an alert gets assigned to them. When an alert gets assigned to them, they have to not only click it, but then they have to go to a different area in the screen and click acknowledge. And that's our way of saying you're actually working on it. You didn't click on this in accident, or partway through your signal dropped and it's not being worked on. Because if they don't click on acknowledge within 10 seconds, or they haven't clicked on anything within a minute, then that shows up on our supervisor's screen of, hey, this is idle. You need to look at this. So the supervisors could grab that alert and take over.
That's cool.
Those sorts of things. So we don't want anybody out there not getting helped who should be. And we went through, lots of power outages, and the test was last year. The tornadoes came through Dayton and a bunch of counties, really. And it was great. Our battery backups worked. We were able to talk to everybody still. Almost for up to 40 hours.
Yeah, because here, in Ohio, if you're not from the Midwest and you come and visit, you better be careful what time of year you come, because you'll be thrown through a loop. I mean, we have every season. Like, we are truly, a 4-season
sometimes in the same week.
Yeah.
Yes. Truly enough.
So before we head out here, James, why don't you give us the places where people can find out more about THS, social media, website, all that stuff, so they know where to find you.
Perfect. The main place is going to be our website. It's www.thsrss.com. On there, you'll be able to find links and guides to our YouTube channel, to Instagram, Facebook, those various social media places. Lots of videos that you can watch, some animated videos that are meant to be introductions to it. And then we have some testimonials on there, people actually using the services that talk about it a little bit. So, yeah, if
Yes.
you're interested, get
And
online and
I
check it out.
definitely, I want to piggyback off of them real quick. Definitely check out the YouTube. I think it definitely explains it in a way that a lot of people can really understand, and bit by bit. But Jimmy, you and David have been great. We appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we can do this again. I'm going to throw a little bit of my personal business out there. My company is going to be working with THS, and I'm happy that they've been, so great, just thus far. So I'll let y'all know if they mess up or something.
Hey, we're glad to
But
work with you, and I'm glad you guys invited me here. It's exciting to just spread the word.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching the Friends for Life podcast here on YouTube. If you can, go down below and hit that subscribe button. Want to take a minute to thank Jimmy for coming on tonight. Very awesome dude. If you can, go over to the THS website and check out what they offer if that's something that you might be interested in for yourself. They're rapidly growing and doing a lot of great things. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.